Can you scream your lungs out and still be seen as sane? Can you fall apart for a moment and still be taken seriously? Are you allowed to feel like the world forgot you, passed you by, looked straight through you without blinking? For many, that kind of feeling is off limits. It's labeled as weakness, a lack of emotional control, or even immaturity. But that label says more about the culture than it does about you. Because somewhere along the way, emotional honesty got rebranded as instability, and silence got a gold star. In most Western cultures, we're expected to keep it together, cry discreetly, if at all, speak calmly, process things rationally, but spend time in a different culture, in parts of Africa, for example, and you'll see a radically different truth. People dance with their emotions. They wail in grief. They shout with joy. They express without shame. Because in those moments, emotion isn't something to hide. It's something to honor. I remember speaking with a woman who hadn't cried in years. Not since the night her partner, the father of her only child, slammed the door behind him and never came back. That night she screamed, loud, raw, primal, and then silence. Years of holding it in, managing, coping, performing. She became the strong one, the dependable one, the one who kept going. But inside, she was frozen. That's what emotional suppression does. It doesn't just help you move on, it disconnects you from yourself, from others, from joy, from rage, from everything in between. You become a quiet version of yourself, perfectly functional, deeply exhausted. And that exhaustion, that's not just from what happened to you, it's from what you never got to feel. We talk about stress like it's something you'll catch from your inbox, but the deepest stress often comes from emotional traffic jams, the kind that build up when you keep swallowing what needed to be released. The tears you didn't cry, the anger you pushed down, the joy you muted because it felt too much. All of it lives in your body. All of it waits. And eventually, it shows up in ways you never expected. Anxiety, chronic pain, emotional flatness, sudden bursts of rage you can't explain. So let me offer something simple but powerful. All emotions are meant to move. They don't need to be fixed. They don't need to be feared. But they do need to be felt. Fully. Honestly. Without judgment. Not to spiral. Not to drown. But to release. Because when emotions are allowed to flow, they lose their grip. They stop haunting your thoughts. They stop owning your reactions. And that brings us to the core of it. You can have emotions. Just don't let them have you. That's not a call for suppression. It's a call for conscious release. When emotions have you, they hijack your sense of proportion. They keep replaying the same memory until it becomes your identity. But when you have them, you can express them, honor them, and still find your way back to center. You don't lose yourself. You find more of yourself. This isn't about being calm all the time. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about letting the storm pass through you without becoming the storm. It's about crying when you need to, screaming when it builds, laughing when it rises, and breathing through all of it. You don't have to earn the right to feel. You were born with it. So yes, scream if you must, cry if you need, dance it out, shake it loose, let the emotion rise like a wave and let it crash. But stay conscious, stay rooted, stay present enough to witness yourself, not just get swept away. Because that's where power lives, not in silence, but in surrender with awareness. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be composed. You just need to be real. And real humans feel. Loudly, softly, messily, beautifully. The question isn't whether emotion makes you weak. The question is, What happens when you stop being afraid of your own depth? Let it move. Let it teach you. Let it pass. And when it does, you'll be more whole than you ever were before. Of course, you can't just scream at random people on a Tuesday and call it emotional authenticity. If your manager says you forgot to upload a file, collapsing in tears probably won't help your promotion. And if a waiter spills your tea and you respond by calling them every name you learned from your childhood sitcoms, we've officially crossed into drama school. We all know this, or at least most of us do. Not every outburst is emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's just a meltdown with bad timing. And yes, there's a difference. Healthy emotional expression, that's when your reaction fits the size of the wound. Getting cheated on? Cry. Getting ghosted by someone you barely liked? Maybe just a long sigh in a playlist. Losing someone you love? Scream. Losing your phone charger? That's a walk, not a war. What we're talking about here isn't feeling too much. It's feeling the wrong thing in the wrong place with the wrong target. That's not release. That's leakage. That's your system saying, hey, remember that thing from 3 years ago we never dealt with? Let's use this coffee spill to finally let it all out. Which brings us to the real issue. Most people don't explode from what just happened. They explode from what's still happening inside. Stuff they never said. Pain they never processed. Emotions they put on mute. Until someone pressed the wrong button and got the full, unedited version. Let's be honest. If you're screaming at your kids because the pasta is overcooked, it's probably not about the meal. That's the difference between emotional release and emotional projection. One helps you heal. The other just helps you lose friends, or jobs, or dinner invitations. So yes, emotions need space, but they also need context. Crying in the shower? Beautiful. Screaming in your car after a tough day? Necessary. Telling off the barista because your name is spelled wrong again? Probably not your deepest wound, Sharon. This isn't about becoming emotionally flat. It's about becoming emotionally accurate. Matching your expression to the size of the moment. Giving your sadness a safe place to land. Not a public performance with popcorn and trauma confetti. Because let's be real, the goal is not to avoid emotion. The goal is to stop outsourcing your unprocessed pain to innocent bystanders and office interns. So scream, cry, dance it out. But maybe don't do it in aisle 7 at IKEA when they're out of teal plates. Timing is still a thing, because at some point, emotional maturity isn't just about expression, it's about ownership. Not just feeling your feelings, but understanding the echo they leave behind. Who carries them after you've let them loose? Who gets cut by the sharpness you didn't mean to wield? The goal isn't to silence your emotions, but to make sure they don't turn you into someone you wouldn't want to come home to. This isn't about being less human. It's about being a more integrated one. The kind of person who can sit with sadness without letting it spill onto strangers. The kind of person who knows when to rage in the woods and when to take a breath before replying to an email. The kind of person whose emotions don't just run deep, but run clean. Because yes, you're allowed to feel everything, but you're also responsible for what you do with it. That's not pressure, that's power. And if that power ever scares you, that's probably where the real healing begins.